Hey, what's up everybody? Jake here and welcome to the hobby. Today we are talking about Pokemon card gimmicks. It seems every single new year, the Pokemon company releases a new gimmick for the Pokemon card series. If you don't know what these gimmicks are, they are things like Galarian Gallery, Trainer Gallery, alt art cards, rainbow rares, all kinds of different chase cards and cool new ideas that keeps the trading card series really fresh. Otherwise, you end up just collecting Charizard again and again and again and again and again. So it gets boring very quickly when you don't add some variety or some seasoning to the trading card to keep it really fresh and entertaining. So in today's video, we're going to talk about some of my favorite and not so favorite gimmicks that the Pokemon company has done in the past. We're not going to go super past. We're just going to start with the XY era and just talk about these different gimmicks and what you should be on the lookout for, because there are some really cool ones and some ones that are just not that interesting. So hopefully you get a good idea about what gimmicks really work. Starting off with the XY era, with XY base set moving forward, we have a bunch of full art cards. If you think about full art Pokemon cards nowadays, you probably don't even think about them as a chase card or even as a good pull. Usually most full art cards nowadays are seen as kind of mediocre. You might be really excited to see your favorite full art Pokemon card, but in general, most full art Pokemon cards are just not that big of chases. However, back when XY era was around, full art cards was about as good as Pokemon cards really got. And these cards, even in today's standard, aren't really that interesting. If you look at the most expensive cards from the XY series, they are actually full art cards, but even then they haven't really retained that much value, even though booster boxes for these sets have skyrocketed and people just aren't interested in collecting these cards. So why is it that full art Pokemon cards aren't interesting to collectors? It really comes down to the lack of personality and illustration. A lot of these full art trainer cards, and there are good full art cards out there. I've actually noted a couple of them. One of my favorite one is the Celebi V. I think it does a fantastic job of making the colors really pop on the card art. In general, a lot of these older full art cards are really muted in their colors, especially in the XY era, where the colors are just a little bit too dark and the Pokemons just do not pop. And these cards just have not gained that same level of interest. But full art cards have continued to grow over the past couple of years. The Pokemon company has never really stopped printing them, and they continue to add full art cards all the way into the Scarlet Violet era, but now they are kind of seen as mediocre hits, where other more interesting secret rare cards have really taken their place. Next up in the never-ending series of gimmicks, the Pokemon company released Mega Pokemon, also known as M Pokemon cards, and these are actually pretty darn interesting. They do these all the time, where they do EX, GX, VMAX, V-Star, name it, and you've probably heard of these different gimmicks. However, what stands out about the Mega Evolution cards, I actually really like these cards. A real big part about them is just how zany and eye-catching they really are. On the art itself, in the English version, you'll see Japanese characters rotating around the Pokemon, and these Japanese characters are actually the name of the move in Japanese. So it's the exact same move or attack that the Pokemon does, but in its Japanese language. So why did they do this? Just to add a little bit of interesting layer of foreignness to it, and to make it even more interesting, if you pick up the Japanese variant of these cards, you'll actually see the English name of the attack move rotating around the cards. So it's just a little something that the Pokemon company threw in, and I actually really like this. I thought it was at least interesting and different. Mega Evolution cards are still kind of popular. They're very niche, but there are people that love Mega Evolution. It just added another interesting element, and the Pokemon company, after Mega Evolution, of course, have done many different things, such as Dynamax and moving on to all kinds of things like terrestrialization, and they continue to do this new twist by adding another gimmick to both the Pokemon video game as well as the Pokemon card series. But for Mega Evolution specifically, I think it's actually a pretty cool idea. There are actually some really outstanding chase cards in the Mega Evolution series, and I would definitely keep my eyes out. If you're into this series, it's a fun one to definitely collect them all. One of the last gimmick that was released for the XY era, and probably the biggest disappointment for them, this was a huge slump for the Pokemon trading card series, and that were the break cards. These were not interesting. pretty much all of these sets had the word break in them. We had something like breakthrough and breakpoints and all kinds of different sets that pretty much had the word break in the series. So what were break cards? They were sideways cards, which were already kind of weird because the Pokemon series have never really done a ton of sideways cards. There are some, but not a ton of them, and this was one that just didn't really catch a lot of interest, especially in the collecting community. I think a big part of it was that it was really hard to distinguish any of the break cards. From across the room, all of the break cards look exactly the same. They all had the exact same metallic, computer-generated CG gold sheen to them, and from a distance, you could not tell them apart. All of these break cards pretty much look exactly the same. If you look close enough, you might be able to distinguish what Pokemon it was. But I don't know what the Pokemon company was going for with these cards, but it didn't really make sense. It didn't match with the XY series in terms of the video games, and this was just something that the trading cards did a spin on, and all of these cards look the same. The Pokemon lost their colors, and it kind of ruined and made it hard to play the game. All the cards pretty much look the same because they all follow the exact same color scheme. And in trading cards, color schemes is really important because you need to be able to tell your cards apart. That's why we have things like yellow and green and vibrant blue colors, and all these unique colors add to the attributes. So you know that when you have a Venusaur card, it's going to be green, and when you have a Bulbasaur or a Blastoise card, it's going to be blue, and Charizard is red. These iconic colors are really important, and that was a reason why I think these break cards never really caught on, is that they all kind of blended together. Once you start looking at a couple, it's really hard to tell them apart, and that's a big part of why break cards to this day are still some of the cheapest cards to really collect. Moving away from XY era, we have Sun and Moon, and Sun and Moon was when the Pokemon company really hit their strides with a bunch of really cool different gimmicks. One of the weaker ones that came out of the Sun and Moon era was Prism Star cards, and every now and again I still get someone asking me if they should collect Prism Star cards and will they go up in value. I will say, first off, if you want to collect Prism Star cards, go ahead. These cards, I think, are actually really, really cool, but Prism Star cards just haven't really caught on fire. One big reason, they were actually quite easy to pull. Another big issue with them was that not a ton of really cool cards or Pokemon got a Prism Star card. There actually aren't a ton of them, and if you're looking at it from a niche series, there are more interesting cards out there to collect than these Prism Stars, and we're definitely going to talk about some of them because some of the best cards that came out from the Sun and Moon block were specifically the Tag Team GX cards, and Tag Team GX by far are probably one of the most popular, if not the most popular gimmick that the Pokemon company has ever done, and a big part of it comes down to the amount of flavor or personality that they throw into these cards. Some of the tag team combos are just super interesting. The Pokemon company definitely put a lot of thoughts about which Pokemon they would team up together. We got dark Pokemon with dark Pokemon like Umbreon and Darkrai, a very interesting combination. To match it out, we have the Psychic, which is Espeon and Deoxys, and then you have super goofy combination, something like Wailord and Magikarp. You have one of the biggest water Pokemon with probably one of the smallest and weakest water Pokemon. So it's very interesting combinations like this. And who can forget Latios and Latios Tag Team GX, which is by far the biggest chase card from the Sun and Moon Tag Team GX era whole entire block. It's just a super cool card. And of course, with the Tag Team GX cards, they came out with their new gimmick, which were alternate art cards, and these caught on fire almost immediately. People love these alternate art cards. It adds so much more personality and visual elements to these cards that just simply wasn't there before. And ever since the Sun and Moon era, alt art cards have been a long mainstay for the Pokemon series. All throughout Sword and Shield and into Scarlet and Violet, we continue to get more and more art cards because people absolutely love these bad boys. Another thing that came out from the Sun and Moon block that has been a mainstay of the Pokemon card series were shiny Pokemon cards with the Hidden Fates sets. And ever since Hidden Fates came out, every single 2 years, it seems we get another Fate set and another series of shiny Pokemon. Shiny Pokemon was not actually a big thing in the trading card series for the longest time. They did throw in a couple of shinies here or there, but in general, shiny Pokemon was not really seen. They were called shining Pokemon even earlier, but in general, I think it is a good idea to have some shiny variant of Pokemon because people absolutely love chasing shiny Pokemon inside of the video game, spending hundreds of hours searching for their specific shiny, and you get the same kind of element with the trading card series where you can find your mainstay Pokemon in a shiny form, and they've done a good job creating a lot of variants. Hidden Fates is clearly a fan favorite with things like Umbreon, Sylveon, as well as Lucario and Gardevoir all in their shiny form. So there's a ton of really cool shiny Pokemon that came out from the Sun and Moon block. And if you're still interested in shiny Pokemon, of course, next year we are getting Paldean Fates, which is our new Fates or Shiny series set with a ton of shiny fan favorites, making it a return. Shiny Charizard, once again, we have another shiny Charizard inside of Paldean Fates, but we also get a bunch of brand new Pokemon that have never had a shiny card printed before from the Scarlet and Violet era, so I'm pretty darn excited about that. Moving on to the Sword and Shield era, we probably have some of the best series of gimmicks that you've probably seen. At the end of the Sun and Moon era and moving into the Sword and Shield era, we had ourselves the Amazing Rare cards, and the Amazing Rare cards are incredibly cheap, but I gotta say, these Amazing Rare cards are some of my favorites from the past couple of years. So if you're interested in these cards, definitely pick them up. They make a wonderful series, and all the Amazing Rares are just phenomenal. They have some really great ones like Rayquaza and Celebi and a bunch of legendary Pokemons as Amazing Rares, and the colors and the textures just really shine on these cards. These are easily some of the best hidden gems that are just super duper affordable. They're very easy to pick up, and it's a fun series to collect if you're a brand new Pokemon card collector. But yeah, this is where the Pokemon Company just really knocks it out of the park with a bunch of really cool stuff. We continue to have alt art cards, and then they bring us, which is probably, I would say, the best series even beyond something like Tag Team GX, and that is the Trainer Gallery cards. I think by far the Trainer Gallery cards are my favorite sets or gimmicks that the Pokemon Company has released in the past probably 5 years. The Trainer Gallery cards are fantastic. They look super cool, and they just show us so much of the world of Pokemon. You can see the trainers actually interacting with their Pokemon. There are just so many different kinds of art style. They're not fixated on one single design. All of these different styles just mesh really well together, and there's all kinds of different style depending on what kind of trainer you are or collector you are. You probably have some Trainer Gallery cards that you really vibe with, which I think is super duper cool that they really made something for everyone. And then moving on to the Scarlet and Violet era, we of course have our illustration rares, which is one of the most recent gimmicks, and we continue to get illustration rares all the way till the most recent sets. And the interesting thing about illustration rare is that the artists really have creative freedom. They can illustrate these Pokemon in whichever design they really want. So there are illustration rares out there that you probably don't really enjoy just because you don't like the aesthetic or art appeal of some of these cards, but there will be cards that you are going to absolutely love. And it's going to be absolutely dependent on you as a collector. There's so much freedom with these illustration rares. The one issue I have with these illustration rares is that of course some of them are super hit and miss, and I think the illustration rares are just a level below the Trainer Gallery cards. The Trainer Gallery cards just told so much of a story with so much illustration that if you were into collecting a bunch of different Pokemon cards and you're looking for some of the best gimmicks from the last couple of years, Tag Team GX, Trainer Gallery cards, and illustration rares are probably the big three that I would definitely jump in on. And if you're a super budget collector that's into a really affordable series of cards, then probably the Amazing Rare is going to be the best for you. Let me know what's been your favorite gimmicks over the last couple of years and what kind of series are you currently collecting. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you guys next time.